Welcome back to The Person Everyone Needs. I am your host, Webb Hoggard, and today I just want to share a few thoughts on the passing, the assassination, the murder of Charlie Kirk, and some thoughts that I've been having since I saw that this has taken place. I don't plan to be political on here. I don't plan to be pushing a side of the aisle or conservatism versus liberalism, or if you liked him or didn't like him, or if you think he was a racist, a misogynist. I'm not really interested in discussing what side you think he was on a lot of issues. The thought that I had today is that what Charlie Kirk has inspired me to do is to find my voice and don't let anyone keep me from speaking the truth. I need to find what it is that I know are my non-negotiables, my values, perhaps vision, mission in my life, but that I need to stop hiding behind every rock, scared that somebody might call me out or recognize me as some kind of a counterfeit or a fake. I noticed that even when I've recently put on socials that I'm mourning this guy, this man I never met, but I had been following him for a while. I had people that came and attacked me on my own posts saying, derogatory things about this guy who's dead. He's dead now. Like, at least leave it alone. But it was like they wanted me to be reminded that he wasn't perfect. And so in the midst of listening to all these things swirling and all these issues that people had, I started getting indignant, which is maybe a good thing, maybe it's not a good thing. I started getting indignant by all that is, surrounding it, by the opinions that are being said, because what I was really just doing is honoring a person who had been killed. And I'll say, whatever you think about the guy, he was murdered, assassinated because of his opinions, the thoughts that he had. He would go to places, he never brought a gun. He never exercised or encouraged any level of violence. He had discussions with people that are supposed to be, in higher education. They're supposed to be people who are critical thinkers. They're supposed to be the place where you should be able to have these kinds of conversations. And he was bringing a different perspective in an area that obviously was not appreciated. They didn't think much of it. They weren't grateful for it. And it radicalized at least one guy to do something absolutely egregious. And the response to that has been so wide. On one hand, you have people calling him a saint. You have people acting like he walked on water. He never did anything wrong, said anything incorrect. But his whole job was to engage people in conversation and move them through dialogue and, in a new direction perhaps. But, even the proverb says where there's a multitude of words, sin is not far away. So the chances of him having articulated every single thought he's ever had perfectly is probably an impossibility that I don't think we're giving him option for. So you have one side that's saying he's saint. You have another side of people that are absolutely denigrating him as a racist and just a horrible human being, and they actually celebrated his death, which I can't. The only time I could ever remember feeling even a feeling of relief when somebody had passed was when they announced that we had finally found Osama bin Laden, and that had been taken care of. Saddam Hussein was another day when this is like this guy who had engineered massive atrocities, murdered thousands and thousands of people. When that regime comes to an end, there is a feeling of relief. But that's the only thing I could even relate to when some people were calling him all the names that they were. I'm not here to venerate. I'm not here to celebrate the assassination of this man. What I would like to take a moment and maybe just give, I don't know, maybe you're even saying right now, Webb, I don't want to listen to this podcast about this political figure. So let me get off politics for a second. Did you know what Charlie Kirk stood for? Did you know what he cared about? Do you know who he cared about? It seems to me he was pretty clear with the things that mattered most to him. And I wonder how many of us living our day-to-day lives could say the same, that we have been so clear about what is number one in our lives, who is the greatest in our lives, who we cared about, what we're protecting, how we feel about things. Most of us are so conflict averse that no one even knows how we feel about things. And because we don't have forums, even in our churches, where we can open up and have strong dialogue, we will never be challenged on our idiotic ideas. And some of them are. I don't mean all of them are. We will never be challenged. We will never be guided. We will never be discipled. We will never become disciplined. We will never learn further than what we already have. We'll never have more than what we have right now, because we are not submitting ourselves to other people and are not allowing the thoughts to ever be challenged. Charlie Kirk was someone who stood on this idea that dialogue was better. In fact, I even heard a speech where he talked about, as long as we keep talking, if we can keep the dialogue open, the chances are there will be enough empathy that we don't have to go into war. And that may sound militant already. Maybe you're saying, you hear that and you're like, see, he was already talking about war. His point, I feel like, is very clear, that we keep ourselves out of these horrible things, out of senseless murder, tragic death, endings that make no sense. We keep ourselves away from that by keeping dialogue open and respect high for all people. I think perhaps that Charlie Kirk has now inspired a revival perhaps and hopefully in the knowledge of Jesus Christ, that everyone in America will begin to recognize that Jesus is worthy to die for, because he already came and died for us. I pray that repentance would wash clean all over our nation. I pray that we would rise in morality and in joy and goodness and kindness and patience. I hope there is a massive tidal wave, not of Republican freedoms, but a tidal wave of relationship and the greatest man who ever lived, Jesus Christ. This tragedy has an opportunity for there still to be victory on the other side. And perhaps the greatest victory is that we would continue to exercise our pursuit of happiness, using the freedom we have of being able to speak our opinions, the freedom of speech in this nation, the freedom to worship however we want to. This was an experiment started over 250 years ago, and I'm so thankful that we get to be a part of a nation where these things are available. But what if people have died in order to give us these rights, and we're not even taking full advantage of them because we hold within ourselves all of the perhaps contradictory opinions, scared to death that somebody might not like what we have to say? What if somebody needs to know they're not alone, but we're staying quiet so they'll never know? What if somebody needs to know that you think the same way they do, that there's some level of community that they're not a part of because they have no idea what other people believe? What if we could communicate to one another with differing opinions, with respect and honor and understanding? What if we didn't have to malign one another because we saw things differently? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about whatsoever, but what I can tell you is that I have been inspired in later days that I have got to figure out what my voice is and then shout. Because again, I've got friends in my life who have told me that I need to stay quiet. They don't like my opinions. They don't think I'm right. They've called me ignorant. They've called me every other name you could tag to somebody. When you're losing your argument, you just start making up things to say about it. And I've allowed those attacks to keep me quiet on things. And I think I'm done. I think I'm done being quiet. God gave me a voice, and he gave me just a few hours on this earth. I think I better speak up while I still have the chance. I think I better speak up on behalf of those who don't have a voice. I think I better speak up and speak for a generation who is ready to rise up and do something great. But they need to know they're not alone. They need to know that others would have their back. They need to know that they're not the only persons who think this way. And so my encouragement to you is find somebody today, trust them enough to give them a piece of your mind, and grow up. Let them disagree with you. Let them push back. And in the middle of that discussion, find a way to grow. I'm going to find my voice, and I'm going to speak it. And I'm not going to get quiet because anybody else wants me to be. I think those who use their voices on behalf of others to build up, to bless, and to understand, that's a person that everyone needs. And as for me, I have to say, Charlie Kirk, he was a person that everyone needs.